Good afternoon and welcome to 3 Talk with me, Nolene Maolwana-Sango. It's been said that globally, 3 out of 5 visits to the doctor are stress-related. It's no wonder given the fact that we live in a fast-paced world, juggling work and family responsibilities and so much more. Anxiety due to a lot of uncertainties also contribute to the high levels of stress. Today, we'll be discussing ways to de-stress and become happier with our lives and the situations we are faced with on a daily basis. Please welcome business coach and author Myron Lees, who's here to give us helpful tips for living a stress-free life. And the book that Myron has written is De-Stress, Building Resilience in Challenging Times, 7 Simple Techniques. Now, I would imagine that the reason why you wrote the book is because you were at some point very stressed.
Absolutely, Nolene. Many, many years ago, what I realized is I didn't have an essential life skill. And that was, how do I control my thoughts and therefore my emotions? What was happening was I was allowing the conditions I was in, or the circumstances I was in, or other people to dictate the way that I was feeling. And I realized, well, if that's the case, I'm going to be on an emotional roller coaster ride for the rest of time. So it became a passion of mine. How do I find the answers to live a stress-reduced life and to be in control of my own emotions?
But we are beings who are influenced largely by our circumstances, influenced largely by what people say, influenced by our jobs. So, you know, the you actually is put on the back burner while everything else is dictating your way of life.
I think what's important really is how we interpret what's happening to us. And often people blame circumstances or are victim to circumstances. But really, if you look at stress, there's no stress in circumstances. So for example, if you're getting stressed in traffic, where in traffic is the stress? So stress doesn't reside outside ourselves, stress resides within ourselves. So therefore, we can have a relationship with stress and we can control our stress because it's a feeling that we have within our own body.
And you believe that there's good stress and there's bad stress, or stress is just stress?
I do believe there's different kinds of stress, Nolene, and there's good stress and bad stress. In fact, there's a terminology for good stress called eustress. And that is the stress that gets us to do actions we wouldn't normally do. Gets us a little bit outside our comfort zones, and to do things and to push ourselves to do things we wouldn't be really normally doing. So that extra 10 minutes on the treadmill, perhaps, or putting our hand up to do something at work we wouldn't normally do, that we would find challenging, that's good stress, because it can be productive.
And how do I know that I am stressed? Because I think that, you know, living in Johannesburg, which is really such a fast-paced place, and, you know, traffic all the time, meetings, deadlines, you kind of always say to, not always, but a lot of the times we say, oh, I'm so stressed. But actually, if you really look down at it, you're not really stressed. It's just part of what you've been doing. So how do I know, Myron, that I am really stressed?
I think there's 2 ways. One is physically, and you would know mentally as well. So for example, if our physiology is being affected, we're tired all the time, we're not sleeping very, very well, we're changing our eating habits, we're eating a lot less or we're eating a lot more. If we're starting to have physical symptoms, for example, if we're having ulcers or high blood pressure, we'd start to know something's going wrong with our body. Often that's stress-related. And mentally as well. So for example, if we are feeling depressed, or we're feeling anxious.
In Times by Myron Lees, who's a business coach as well. So let's just go through, at the end of the book, the stress health checks.
Yes, so it's an informal health check, and what I've done is make it really easy for the reader. So all you got to do is check some boxes, and we have different statements. And for different people, they'll find it stressful, some they won't find stressful.
Yeah.
So all you do is go to the different categories at the end of the book and just simply tick the ones that you feel are stressful to you. And then you add up your scores, and at the end, you'll get a total score. And that will then lead you to read something that will tell you in what category you are in terms of low stress or high stress.
Okay. Now let's. You've got in the book as well. There's a little red card that's in the kind of the sleeve of the book, and this is the red card, and it says you've got 1, 2, 3. Let's just talk about the 3 statements that you make in this book and how it relates to stress and ultimately how it can help me.
Yes, you know what's really interesting, Nolene, is that we have about 60,000 thoughts every single day. And when I heard that statistic, it was quite incredible. But when I heard the next statistic, that was most of those 60,000 thoughts were negative. So we've got about 45,000 negative thoughts churning through our mind. And I call those thought attacks.
Yeah.
In a similar way that a referee holds out a red card and sends a player off the field for doing a damaging act, so too can we send out our negative thoughts out of our mind. And we do that through 3 simple points on the red card. The first one is, these thoughts are harmful to me. If I'm thinking negative thoughts, I know it's going to have a consequence to me. The second point is, I can choose different thoughts. No one's holding a gun to our heads, let's face it, and forcing us to think in a certain way. So we can choose the way that we want to think. And the third point, which is the most important point, is a question. And that question is, how else can I interpret what's happening? How else can I perceive? How else can I interpret the event that's happening that's causing me to feel stress? So it starts shifting our perspective to look at perhaps the benefits and the opportunities in the stressful situation.
But is it as easy as 1, 2, 3?
Well, it takes practice. And
I would imagine, because if I've been living my life having 45,000 negative thoughts every single day, and it's going to be very difficult to change this. So I think let's just go into practicalities as to how we can change the thought processes and have less negative thoughts and more positive thoughts.
Yes, and this is why we need to control our mind. If we're going to leave our mind alone, those 45,000 negative thoughts are going to come to play.
Yeah.
So what's really important is for us to learn how to interpret what's happening to us, so that we choose positive interpretations rather than allowing the circumstance to dictate the way that we feel. So if we're stuck in traffic, for example, and we're getting really stressed and frustrated, and we use the red card and we send those negative thoughts out through our mind, and we say, how else can I look at this? How else can I interpret this? Okay, I can't control the traffic, but I can control the way that I want to perceive, the way I want to interpret what's happening to me. So I might put on the radio, listen to a program I like, or might put on a nice CD and relax on the way to work. Maybe it gives me another half an hour more to relax. And that's a different way of looking at it. So in that way, we don't allow the external circumstances to affect ourselves internally and our stress levels.
But then if I am, and I think it's in your book where you mention a guy who's not been doing very well in his business, and it's $1 million business or deal that he's going to do, gets onto a train, there's a 20-minute delay, he knows that he's not going to make it, and this happens to us. It may not be $1 million deal, but it may be something very important materialistically, financially, personally. And how do you not get your knickers in a complete knot, because you know that if this train is delayed or this plane is delayed, I'm not going to make it, and therefore what I really, really want for myself is not going to come to pass?
Absolutely, and it's a great question. I think what's so important here is to know what we can and can't control. We can't control the train coming late, but we can control what we can control, and therefore we can make a call and say, look, I am running late, and adjust what we can do about the situation. So if it was an hour meeting and we're 20 minutes late, okay, well, I've only got 40 minutes to give this presentation, and I'll make the most of that. Where we get stressed is when we try to control something we actually can't control.
All right, well, guys, thank you very, very much. Great books, Gilles. Gilles, your book, Living in the Now, Less Stress, More Happiness, and De-Stress by Myron Lees. Thank you very much. Well, join us again on Monday.